Forbes Darby with NOAA Fisheries. We've developed this self-guided presentation to provide you with more information about the Marine Recreational Information Program, or MRIP. If you're a fisherman, you've probably seen a bulletin board like this in your favorite tackle shop.
It's an everlasting reminder of great times past and the promise of great fishing to come.
You've probably also wondered things like, how many fish are out there? How does anyone really know? And who decides how many fish people can catch? We hope this presentation helps answer some of those questions, but first we want to dispel a common myth. A lot of folks think that what we do is go out and talk to a few fishermen, put that information into a black box somewhere in Washington, D.C., and then issue fishing regulations based on those few interviews. The reality is, the process is far more dynamic, and it involves input from anglers at many points along the way. First, NOAA uses a series of surveys to estimate recreational fishing activity. Those surveys are conducted year-round in many places and involve interviews with thousands of anglers. We then take that information and combine it with other sources of data like commercial catch, biological research, and direct observation of what's happening in the fishery. All these and other factors are then taken into account by fishery scientists who work to determine the health of fisheries. After all, understanding as much as we can about any given fish population is the key to knowing how many fish we can sustainably catch. Scientists' findings are then shared with the regional fishery management councils and interstate marine fisheries commissions. These are public bodies made up of scientists, managers, recreational and commercial fishermen, and other concerned citizens. Through this very public process, the councils and commissions set regulations that will best meet scientifically established catch limits. This is really an ongoing feedback loop, which starts all over again as everyone works together to evaluate whether fishing is happening at sustainable levels. Which brings us back full circle to the critical role of anglers and their cooperation in our recreational fishing surveys. Since the information they provide is so important to this process, let's take a deeper look at those surveys for a second. We're often asked, why use surveys in the first place? Why not just count all the fish? First off, there's a matter of feasibility. There's just no way we could ever interview every angler and find out what they caught on every trip. Second, well-designed surveys are a proven and time-tested way to accurately measure characteristics of large populations. They're used every day by all sorts of agencies and businesses to do everything from track diseases, to gauge public opinion, to figure out how many people watch your favorite TV show. Still, as trusted as surveys are, there's always room for improvement, and we'll talk about some of the ones we're making in a minute.
To measure overall recreational fishing activity, generally speaking, NOAA Fisheries conducts two separate surveys. The first is for catch, where we conduct shoreside interviews to see what people are catching, what they're keeping, and what they've released. We also look at the size, weight, and species of each fish we sample. The second survey is for effort, where we ask anglers how often they're fishing or the number of trips they've taken during the reporting period. Depending on which state they're conducted in, effort surveys may involve dockside interviews or telephone calls. On the Atlantic and Gulf coasts, we're in the midst of a major overhaul of our effort survey. Beginning in 2015, we are conducting a side-by-side comparison of our current telephone survey and new mail survey. Studies indicate a mail survey will be better, but we need to fully understand and account for any differences in results before we implement a new effort survey. More on that later in this presentation.
To estimate the total catch for a certain geographic area during a given period of time, we simply multiply the catch rate times the number of fishing trips that occurred. Now, the actual formula we use is a bit more complicated. You can see it here, but that's the basic idea. It's also very important to keep in mind that every estimate has two parts. The first is the point estimate, the number of fish, pounds, or trips we're reporting on. The second is the precision. In polling, this is often referred to as the margin of error. We use a similar measure called the PSC. The lower the PSC, the more confident we can be in the precision of that point estimate. For an estimate to have any real-world meaning, you have to know both the point estimate and the PSC. You can check out these numbers for yourself and learn a lot more about the science and statistics behind our estimates at countmyfish.noaa.gov. Is this the end of the story? Of course not. It's actually just the beginning. Since 2006, we've been involved in a major effort to substantially improve our surveys and estimates.
MRIP is a comprehensive overhaul of the way we collect and report recreational fishing information. It has involved the participation of state and federal government, outside experts, recreational fishermen, charter boat captains, conservationists, and other stakeholders. MRIP is aimed at creating better numbers, greater confidence in those numbers, and better access for scientists, managers, and the public alike. This all matters because ensuring the sustainability of recreational fishing, both for today and for generations to come, means working together. As this chart shows, recreational fishermen catch a lot of fish, the majority of some popular species. At the same time, for as long as there has been fishing, fishermen have been stewards of the resource as much as they've used it. Maintaining this critical relationship between managers, scientists, stakeholders, and the recreational fishing community relies on access to information that's both accurate and trusted. When folks learn about what MRIP is, the most common question they ask next is, what's changing? Or what's new? Using the independent assessment as our guide, we've implemented a number of fundamental improvements to our survey designs and estimates, and are always on the lookout for new and better ways to do things. Let's take a look at some of the improvements we've completed and others we have underway. There's a lot more details on all our work at countmyfish.noaa.gov. One of the first major improvements implemented under MRIP was to fix the math behind our catch estimates. According to the independent assessment, there was a mismatch between the way we were gathering data and the way we were using that data to generate estimates. This was very much a behind-the-scenes project, but it was a fundamental step that we had to take before we could make any significant headway on other improvements. If you'd like to learn more, check out the re-estimation video on our website.
Building on the same principles from the re-estimation, in 2013 we rolled out improvements to our catch surveys. The survey protocols we now have in place are more rigorous and involve more comprehensive sampling. For instance, we now sample during all time periods, including at night. In addition, we've reduced the number of decisions individual samplers are able to make in the field. This is important for ensuring that different data gathered by different samplers can be compared in a true apples-to-apples fashion. If you'd like to hear samplers explain these changes in their own words, you can watch them in a video at our website. Chances are, you're required to get a license or registration before you fish in saltwater. The primary goal behind this requirement was to create a comprehensive national directory of recreational fishermen. We're now using this information to improve the quality of our effort surveys. Those improvements are taking place right now. Traditionally, we have gathered effort data on the Atlantic and Gulf Coast using phone surveys that randomly call households and coastal counties. In 2014, we released the results of a multi-phase, multi-year series of studies to determine a better way to get this information. Although this might seem a little counterintuitive in the digital age, our studies have clearly shown that using mail surveys instead of phone surveys will be better, and that more fishermen respond to the survey. In addition, using license and registration contact information, coupled with addresses from the U.S. Postal Service, we now have the potential to reach all saltwater fishermen, not just those living in coastal counties. Because the old and new methods are so different from one another, we will be running side-by-side comparisons of the two until we have a way to accurately interpret and adjust for any differences before switching over to mail surveys exclusively. As we finalize work on these fundamental changes to our surveys and estimation methods, we open the door to expand our focus and turn our attention to meeting some of the other information needs that our stakeholders have asked us for. These include more timely estimates, more precise estimates, more data targeted at specific species, and estimates of activity from smaller geographic areas. As we build the foundation to provide this type of data, we have to decide how best to do so. And that means a discussion with our stakeholders about the most effective way to allocate our resources. Work is also underway to look at alternative forms of data collection. We appreciate that many anglers are eager to share their fishing information with us using online tools or smartphone apps. The reality is that this type of information is well suited for some use by scientists and managers, but not for others. We want to provide clear direction to anglers as to what type of data we need and how it will be used. Finally, another short-term priority is enhancing our surveys for hire fleet and highly migratory species. Although we can apply much of what we learn from our studies of our general surveys, each of these distinct forms of recreational fishing present unique challenges and opportunities for maximizing survey quality. Updates on projects like logbook reporting and tournament sampling can be found on our website, countmyfish.noaa.gov. Thank you for your interest in MRIP. If you take one thing away from this presentation, we hope it's this. At the end of the day, MRIP is about ensuring that our recreational fisheries are sustainable now and for generations to come, so that when your children or grandchildren walk into their favorite tackle shop, they can put their picture up on the board next to yours.